I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about a comedian who got arrested when he landed back in the UK because of some posts that he made on X, because I guess that's just what they do, and they are related to trans stuff. So he got, in trouble for it. So that's kind of the hot talk right now. Also wanted to talk about this like brilliant thread from JK Rowling. There was a former director of Harry Potter who was asked, whether they basically, kind of have some kind of reunion. And he mentioned that, her views on transgender issues. And so she decided to do a post. She's like, oh, another, person decided to speak up about how they have different views from me. And she just laid out what her views are. And really, I think it would be great if people sat down with folks like Emma Watson or David Ratcliffe and just asked these simple bullet points to see whether or not they do agree or don't agree with JK Rowling on these issues, so we can see where these people stand. Because it's really easy to call someone a bigot, but when we analyze what you actually believe or what you claim to believe and analyze what they actually believe, your opponent that you think is so terrible, we'll see if you're as brave. We'll see if you still got, your chest puffing out. So we be chit chatting about those things, some interesting things going on. Also, just as far as like normal politics with Trump, the court did strike down like his tariff policies, and I'm not surprised. And so I do think that's a good thing. I know some of you guys are like, no, trust Trump. Trump has done some very good things, but his tariff stuff is an overreach, and unfortunately it might be playing very negatively as far as India and some decisions that they're making as far as, getting cozier with China and Russia. And so there's I think some bad impacts that maybe won't manifest so immediately, but are maybe out there. So I hope those things can be fixed, but we are going to focus mainly on this kind of trans issue and these stories with JK Rowling and free speech and what's going on in the UK. And we'll see where we are after our time, but you guys know how we like to rant here. So before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream, run my site, all those things. So if you guys can support, I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. There's an opportunity. That's come my way. It'll be later in the year. I'm debating with whether or not I want to kind of announce it prior to it happening, because I don't think it would be the safest thing, I guess, if I announced it kind of like prior to me going, and it happening. So I don't know if I want that information out there, but it's a nice, really cool opportunity for me. And I'll have let's just say some really great content as a result. And I would just kind of need to raise some more capital. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how much I guess I want to solicit you guys and let you know. But there's always needs at Black Tea News and stuff. So I just, again, the stuff that I use is not free, and there's monthly costs, etc., unless you pay it out yearly, but I'm doing it monthly right now. So anyway, if you guys can support, you guys can go to the website, and those of you who have done that, it really does help. I thank you guys for watching my content, for sharing my content, for commenting, for liking, for reposting. All those things do help. I am monetized, though YouTube and TikTok and all these platforms really, really, really are trying to throttle me. I keep getting comments from you guys saying that you're not getting notifications when I go live. I don't know what else to kind of do about that, but I'm gonna keep doing my thing. Because this opportunity that I'm can't quite say right now someone who's just following my content. Like, I know I'm not getting like millions of views or whatever, but you never know who might be watching. So I'm gonna keep pushing and keep doing what I need to do. I was not streaming on Friday because I was really sick. I told you guys on Thursday that I didn't feel well, that I felt pretty bad because of my sinuses. And so Friday, I had a full on sinus headache, nausea, throwing up. All it was gross. I felt terrible. I was basically in the bed all day until like the evening, and then by then I had slept it off. That my head wasn't like crazy kind of pounding or whatever, and I wasn't too nauseous. Still felt not great, but I was able to go to church and stuff. So that was like the only thing that I ended up doing, and I didn't eat until like after church. I just wasn't hungry, didn't have appetite. I the only productive thing I did besides like going to church later was I did send off a proof copy for my hardback cover of Bigger, and I don't know when I'm gonna get that. I think it's supposed to get it within like 14 days of when I send it off. So I guess there's still like 9 days, but I don't even have they haven't shipped it. There's no tracking info, so that's I'm really impatient about it. I really want to see what it looks like in the hardback. So if it looks good, and I don't have to make any adjustments, I can just kind of move forward from there and give you guys a date for when it's officially going to be out. But it should be October. I just am trying to see if it's going to be earlier October or later October, and maybe just a week or two in the difference. But I'm assuming that it all looks good. The digital proofs look good. I still, this is Bigger. This is the KDP Kindle proof version. I hate this ugly stupid strip that they put on all the proofs. So I was supposed to get a new proof on Monday for it, and they didn't ship it out. I'm like, there's no if by Monday morning, I'm like, there's no shipping information. There's no way that they're getting to this to me on Monday. And they updated it, and they're like, oh, we got to give it to you on Thursday. They did deduct the shipping. I guess it wasn't a lot of shipping because I just ordered one book, but I should get another update on Friday. So if that's all good, I'm gonna go ahead and set my official sort of release, I think, on Amazon, so then I can kind of go to the next part. So lots of kind of things going on as far as that goes, and I can't wait to let you guys know when it'll officially be released, and then when we'll have the release party at my sister's studio. And if you guys would like to pre-order like signed copies, you guys will be able to do that on my site. My site, meaning my Ninja Dust Publishing website. I would rather not, I guess, probably do that on Black Tea, but I'll have a link that you guys can go on the website and order a copy. If you guys want to wait and just order it on Amazon or something, that's fine. But if you want to sign one, and I'll have some deals on there. But if people want to like buy them, reserve them for the signing and pick them up on the day, there will be event ones too. So that's what's going on there. I hope you guys enjoyed your holiday. I was at a I was invited to go to Arts Beats and Eats. It's a thing that goes on in Michigan every year. Where it's like just a big kind of like Oakland County fair sort of thing. And I haven't been there in a long time, and actually didn't go into the actual Arts Beats and Eats fair. I haven't gone since it was on the Phoenix Center in Pontiac, and now it's in Royal Oak. And they had a singing karaoke contest, and the winner got to perform with Vanilla Ice at like Soaring Eagle, and they won $10,000. So I didn't know about it because y'all know I like some karaoke, and I can sing. So I did not know about it, and apparently they have it every year. So I guess that's something to think about next year. And a friend of mine, his son was performing, so he was just trying to get bodies there to vote for his son, and his son can really sing. He's like a crooner voice, and so and he's saying I did it my way, did a great job, and so I went out there to support them, and so that was basically kind of the bulk of my day. So of the interesting things. I hope you guys had a good holiday. Um, said you've had a sinus infection just at a time in the Midwest West. I I I don't know. I'm just praying. I'm like, Lord, you can heal me of this. I don't want to go through this anymore. I told somebody at church that how I felt, and he's like, "Oh, I don't get headaches anymore." He's like, "Ever since I got saved, I don't get headaches anymore." I'm just like, "Well, I claim that." Like, maybe I gotta believe differently. Maybe I'm doing something wrong because it feels awful. I hate it. Okay, that's enough of the intro. We did enough catching up. Let's talk about this. Okay, so in the UK, we know that they have an issue with free speech. There's been different reports about people being flagged down and confronted because of their social media posts and so on. This isn't even like the first kind of story I've heard about this. It's just kind of been a minute. Um, and so I'm going to go ahead and go to the Substack and read off their Substack what happened. But there was a comedian who got arrested for some of his posts on X. So this is kind of all the rage, what people are talking about on X right now. And there's so many things going on in the UK that you would think would just be sort of more pressing than this sort of stuff. But especially since they're having a, you know, realignment, I suppose, with this issue, knowing how much damage it's done, especially to children. But the madness still persists. I saw someone mention there was a show, the Newsroom. I've never seen the Newsroom, but you've probably seen a very viral clip of I think Jeff Daniels character who was like a reporter, and he was asked by someone, a young woman, like, what does he love about America, or why is America the best country in the world? And that actress was actually she played Freya on the originals, and this is before the originals, I guess, but I recognize her when I see the clip. And he just starts going off about how America isn't really the greatest country in the world, and like, why do you say that? We're not leading in anything except for adults that believe in angels. It's like, you tool. Like, what the heck? And he's like, oh, you say we have free speech? He's like, Canada has free speech. I'm like, do they? If you're like a pastor and you want to preach, some stuff about homosexuality, like, I'm not saying that they can't teach that, but just there's some dings, or I think that they get if they're talking about it online. Then the Canada might be like, hey, heard you talking about this stuff. UK definitely doesn't seem to have that. And there are moments when we're very concerned about that United States of America, to be frank. But people have mentioned, like, oh, all these people were sharing this video for all these years about how all these other countries have free speech and stuff, and then you got people being arrested over the tweets that they make on X. So anyway, this is from the Glinner update from Graham Linham, and that's I suppose him. Something odd happened before I even boarded the flight in Arizona. When I handed over my passport at the gate, the official told me I didn't have a seat and had to be reticketed. At the time, I thought it was just the sort of innocent snafu that makes air travel such a joy. But in hindsight, it was clear I had been flagged. Someone somewhere, probably wearing unconvincing makeup in his sister wife's mom's underwear, had made a phone call. The moment I stepped off the plane in Heathrow, 5 armed police officers were waiting. Not one, not two, 5. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. In a country where pedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control, where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state had mobilized 5 armed officials to arrest a comedy writer for this tweet. And no, I promise you, I am not making this up. So one of them was, if a trans identified male is in a female only space, he is committing a violent abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. I don't know if that's supposed to be funny. It's not very funny to me, but I don't think it's worth getting arrested over. But this one, a photo you can smell. So a bunch of different, people out protesting. That was kind of funny. um, and then the third one was, I hate them, misogynists and homophobes. Bleep them. When I first saw the cops, I actually laughed. I couldn't help myself. Don't tell me you've been sent by the trans activists. The officers gave no reaction, and this was the theme throughout most of the day. Among the rank and file, there are sort of polite bafflement, um, entirely professional and even kind, but most had absolutely no idea what any of this was about. Kind because the officers saw how upset I was when they began reading me my rights and the red mist descended and I came closer to becoming one of those police body cam videos where you can't believe the perp isn't just doing what he's told, and they treated me gently after that. They even arranged for a van to meet me on the tarmac so I didn't have to be perp walked through the airport like a terrorist. Small mercies. At Heathrow Police Station, my belt, bag, and devices were confiscated. Then I was shown into a small green tiled cell with a bunk, a silver toilet in the corner, and a message from the Crime Stoppers on the ceiling next to a conclave mirror that was presumably there to make you reflect on your life choices. By some miracle, probably because I hadn't slept on the flight, I managed to doze off after the premier economy seat in which I just spent 10 hours. It was actually a relief to stretch out. That passed the time, though I kept walking up, wondering if it was all actually happening. Later during the interview itself, the tone shifted. The officer conducting it asked about each of the terrible tweets in turn with a sort of earnest intensity, usually reserved for discussing something serious like, oh, I don't know, crime. I explained that the punch tweet was a serious point made with a joke. Men who enter women's spaces are abusers and they need to be challenged every time. The punch in the bollocks bit was about the height difference between men and women, and the bollocks being closer to the punch level for a woman defending her rights, and certainly not to a call to violence. Not one of my best, as one of the female officers said, we're not that small. So there's the explanation to that. I to me it just felt really serious. It didn't seem very funny, but he mentioned trans people. I asked him what he meant by the phrase people who feel their gender is different than what was assigned at birth. I said, assigned at birth, our sex isn't assigned. He called it semantics. I told him he was using activist language. The damage Stonewall has done to the UK police force will take years to mend. Eventually, a nurse came to check on me and found my blood pressure was over 200, stroke territory. Wow. The stress of being arrested for jokes was literally threatening my life. So I was escorted to A&E, where I write this now after spending about 8 hours under observation. The doctor suggested the high blood pressure was stress related combined with long haul travel and lack of movement. I feel it may also have been a contributing factor that I have now spent 8 years being targeted by trans activists working in tandem with police in a dedicated persistent harassment campaign, because I refuse to believe that lesbians have, you know, stuff. Balls, I guess I'll say. Police themselves, for the most part, were consistently decent throughout this farce. Some were even Father Ted fans. Thank God the Catholic Church never had with the police their special relationship granted to trans activists. The male officers were mostly polite, but clearly non-pulsed by the politics of it all, just doing their jobs, however insane those jobs had become. The female officer seemed more tuned into what was actually happening. One mentioned the Sandy Peggy case in a certain way, and I realized I was among friends, even if they couldn't admit it. I looked at the single bail condition. I am not to go on Twitter. That's it. No threats, no speeches about the seriousness of my crimes, just a legal gag order designed to shut me up while I'm in the UK, a demand I face a further review interview in October. Civility of individual officers doesn't alter the fundamental reality of what happened. I was arrested at the airport like a terrorist, locked in a cell like a criminal, taken to the hospital because the stress nearly killed me, and banned from speaking online, all because I made jokes that upset some psychotic cross dressers. To me, this proves one thing beyond a doubt: the UK has become a country that is hostile to freedom of speech, hostile to women, and far too accommodating to the demands of violent, entitled, abusive men who have turned the police into their personal groom squad. I'm sorry, goon squad. Epilogue. At one point, I said, "I bet I know who made this complaint." Lindsay Watson, demented ex copper troon who was fired for his online conduct. Then, lo and behold, one of my lawyers sent me this reply. Um, that weirdo ex copper claims he reported this to the police and is trying to get other troons to do so. Okay, Watson is also involved in my other case on Thursday and Friday at um, London Westminster Magistrates Court. Trans activists are planning to protest, so bring the nose plugs. That sorry, that one is kind of funny. Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy, man. So I didn't see that Substack post link from his Twitter. So maybe he didn't tweet about it. That's a crazy bail condition, I guess, saying we'll let you go. You can go. You just can't post about this on Twitter. Okay, there's what about Facebook? What about Instagram? What about TikTok? What about Telegram? What about I think Parler is like totally gone. You know, what about Threads? What about Blue Sky? They probably really could kick him out of Blue Sky real fast. But there's other places you could obviously post this stuff at where someone might, you know, let it be known what's happening. So that seems really bizarre to me. So he obviously wrote that Substack, and I saw other people share it. So that's how I saw it. But I saw other people talking about it, and it's just a real shame that people. Yeah, someone said, "What about Reddit?" Like, you can still post things on Reddit and it go, you know, viral and stuff. Ugh, it's crazy. So JK Rowling, the Free Speech Union had posted about it, and JK Rowling, you know, ended up talking about it. So JK Rowling, you know, she talks about something, retweets something, it's out there, man. It's out there. She has how many followers she got? I mean, she's 14.3 million followers. I thought it was going to be a little less. that's a that's a big number. So she tweeted about it. So it seemed like a really strange condition. Maybe it's just part of the humiliation ritual. Yeah, just crazy. They people should not be able to just be upset about what you posted online, and it ends up with you being arrested and then having your heart, you know, your blood pressure or whatever being up to like 200 and worrying if you're going to die from a stroke. That's crazy. That is crazy. And the fact that he's aware and could guess who was going to be the person who had reported him, and that they like gleefully, I guess, did it. Um it doesn't look like, well, he did post on the 1st. That was yesterday. Um I don't see that he posted about his arrest though. So so maybe he met that condition, but other people talked about it. April said, "Thank God I was born in America, the beautiful." Yeah, hopefully we're not at that point where we start losing some of these freedoms and abilities to speak online. But I mean, I know but the last presidential hopeful who ran against President Trump wanted to censor stuff online. That was something she talked about. And they were trying to get away with it by saying, oh, we got to protect people from misinformation, even though they would spread misinformation. And oh my gosh, Kamala Harris campaign was so bad about misinformation, just flat out lies. But they wanted to curb what they deem as hate speech and also misinformation. So, you know, the pendulum, I keep saying, has swung with Trump. But if he had lost, we would have seen how bad things are. I think things are pretty bad though. Especially depending on what pockets. But um, I guess the left is just so radical, and they really should be the Democrats really should be taking a shift where they're trying to get back to some kind of normalcy. But there's so much vibrance in their insane population, and I'm not sure how small it is now. And they're getting all the hype, they're getting all of the momentum, with uh the guy running for mayor of New York, and people are saying, oh, acting like they should have more folks like him, more folks like AOC, and AOC is probably not even radical enough for them, but more people like Mom Donnie and stuff. And there was maybe it was the New York Times, or it was a major newspaper, was writing about Mamdani, and they're like, oh, he's not really a socialist, he's a democratic socialist, and that's different. And like, there's no real evidence that he's a socialist. Like, but he says socialist things all the time. Like, when you talk about seizing the means of production, like, you what do you think that means? Like, like, he's using all the language, and he has used all the language, you know. They could just slap democratic in front of it like Bernie Sanders would do, but that they know that they operate and live in the United States of America, so they can't go all the way to the extreme that they want to. But that doesn't mean that that's not their heart's desire, and they won't implement what they can, and they keep trying to move the needle into that more communist sort of approach. And Peter Bet, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep calling him Peter. Patrick Bet David. He has a huge platform and stuff. Very rich man, started his own company for like I think they do real estate and stuff. Um, and he was on the Jubilee show Surrounded, and it was him versus like 20 or 25 communists, or people who were like anti-capitalist. And I just saw some of the clips. I guess I do have some in my feed that I could play, but I just rather not get dinged by Jubilee because they're very stingy about people using their stuff. So I probably won't play any for you guys today. But he dealt with some crazy folks that just believe the most off stuff, that and everything. It couldn't be their fault. It's all the failures are just the fault of the system. Like, there's one guy who said that he applied to over 400 jobs, and he was like, okay, how about I hire you? Like, would you be willing to, relocate and stuff? And he's just like, hesitant on the offer. And, and other people are just like, well, why should we have to work hard? And there was someone complaining about how they had the mental health issues, and he's like, okay, well, how about I get us offered to pay for a psychiatrist, and I pay for this certain kind of specialist, but it's got to be the specialist. She's like, no. And like, there's someone who's willing, maybe he's full of crap, but he's like saying this on the show so everyone could hear, and he makes an offer. If you've really applied to over 400 jobs, and and I don't know if there's some kind of automated thing that's helping you do that, because applying to 400 things by yourself, like manually each time, it takes up a lot of time. It would be really, really annoying. if you're really that desperate to work and a multimillionaire tells the world he's willing to offer you a job, why don't you jump on that? Why don't you jump on that? If anything, it would make good content. Like, it might change your life, might change your family's life, and and he just kind of weaseled out, not like totally or whatever, but just you could sense the hesitancy and not really, you know, I don't know, being grateful for the opportunity. It was but they're just so trained to be anti-capitalism. One girl said something like, capitalism doesn't breed incentives. The only like thing it does is like make people want to survive. I'm like, isn't surviving good incentive? Like being able to live and take care of your family, and you go up there and you grind and you make a nice living for yourself if you can. And then if you can make a nice living for yourself, give yourself enough leeway to do, I don't know, vacations and other things. You got to find a way to find some fun in life and not just work yourself to the bone. But people who really, really want to do well and start a business for themselves and generate passive income is because they have a why, and they understand that um, the most precious thing that you can't get back is time. So if you can find a way to make your money work for you without you being like on site doing all the stuff all the time, and it you make money, you generate money when you sleep and do other things, and you can set yourself up and you can have something to leave to your kids and so on, then you can start focusing on like your why, like your why because you want to spend more time with your family? Is your why that you want to build wells in Africa so more people can have drinking water and stuff? Like, it just it starts expanding beyond like you making money, and then you doing well, being able to hire other people, they get jobs and they can provide for their families. And it's like, well, what kind of incentive does socialism breed? And I don't even think that Patrick Bet David is like that formidable of a debate opponent or interviewer or anything like that. But everybody that I just saw clips of was just kind of so bad. So maybe I'll have to go back and watch it because I haven't watched the whole thing. But it just some of the stuff that I'm seeing is so cringe. But people really do have such a problem today with capitalism. Like when I did that article and did the videos about Meyer, and people spread a bunch of rumors about Meyer claiming that the story from last year, they arrested they there's an employee that was stealing them from them for a while. He worked in the deli, and once Myers found out that he was stealing from them, they did a investigation. The investigation was like a week, less than a week actually. They worked with loss prevention, called the police, and did an incident report. And he was, walked off in cuffs. And it was like $110 that it amounted to, but he was stealing like fountain drinks, food off the sales floor, chicken, fruit cups, things like that. And so, like in the body cam footage, a police officer said, we're gonna do a zero bond, and you probably just have to pay restitution." And I think that's about what we know about the case, really. And somehow it turns to Myers arrested this 16-year-old kid who was autistic for stealing fruit cups that were already in the garbage. And so I kept correcting people. I did some videos on it, and there was one video that was really viral. I was arguing with people in the comments about it, and I even emailed journalists who had written wrong things about it in their paper, and they issued corrections. And people were so angry with me for just exposing the truth, for correcting the lies. And people are like, "Wow, who this? You work for their PR department? You must work for Meyer. Or you must be related to the store manager. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you siding with capitalism? Why do you even care?" Like, and I'm like, "What? Why do I need to be incentivized to tell the truth?" And I'm like, "What is your problem? Like, why lie about Meyer like this?" But they're a big corporation. They have money, and they don't. so they want them to be destroyed. That's just their mindset. And there's so many people, I want to say young people, but some of these people aren't so young. Some of these people aren't so young. All these people are old enough to vote. They're old enough to vote, and they're ready to destroy your country. There was it's not just like anti-capitalism. It's just anti-Western civilization. And in Detroit, I live in Michigan. This was not that far from me. There was some kind of like Palestine conference or something that went on, and some of the speakers were saying things like, people, who don't, they just can't wrap their minds around what's going on in Palestine, and they'll side with Israel because the values of Israel like the same of America. So we have to like tear down what the idea of America is in people's minds. And I'm like, what the heck? So a lot of these folks that attach themselves to all these like left-wing causes, a lot of it is just about being anti-America, being anti-Western civilization. Like, if you're wondering why are there queers for Palestine, it's because they all kind of have the same committed goals, same kind of committed idea about tearing down the West. The West is bad, oppressor versus the oppressed. It's all about that hierarchy, that oppression Olympics, and just tearing down and destroying who they think are the villains. It's amazing that their worldview is so simple on this, but other things like abortion, for example, they'll be like, "Oh, well, it's a really nuanced conversation," and it. Okay, but you guys are cheering when a CEO of a healthcare company is shot in cold blood. That seems like it's clearly bad. but you guys think that he got what he deserved because he was a healthcare CEO. And CEOs are bad. And some people were even saying that in my comments, like, you did this video, you said this stuff, and you're not getting the reaction you thought you would get. And you got to read the room, because in an age where people are cheering on when CEOs are being killed. And I replied to that person because they tried to make it seem like they were a reasonable person in the comments. And I'm just like, I'm not surprised at all about the reaction that I'm getting. And I got so much of that reaction because they were just, my video was popping up in the search options, and it wasn't being shown on the For You page or to my followers. It was mostly just people searching about the story who already probably had their mind made up, and they don't like to be proven wrong. They don't like to feel embarrassed and know that they spread misinformation or whatever. But I'm like, I'm not surprised that people are wicked and evil and delight in evil. I'm not surprised about that. Not at all. I'm not at all surprised. Even people are still coming against me for explaining the Cracker Barrel logo isn't racist. People are still mad at me about it. And I got the most wildest comment over the weekend. And someone, just to back up a little bit so you guys know what I'm talking about. Everybody's been talking about Cracker Barrel and their rebrand. And so, by the way, Cracker Barrel decided to go back to their original logo. I don't know what they're going to do about those stores that they already updated, but they're going back to the original logo. And so, since it's topical and I write historical fiction fantasy books, I thought it would be a good idea on social media to say, hey, since everybody's talking about Cracker Barrel and the logo, I just think it would be neat to tell you guys that the name Cracker Barrel is from crackers of barrels. There used to be literal barrels filled with crackers, and that's where the name is from. And they'd be in general stores, and people would just kind of chit chat and hang out around the Cracker Barrels. And just like you had water cooler talk, like in the office, you talk about what TV shows you watch on TV or whatever. There's Cracker Barrel talk, and there's even like since then I found like photos of people actually just playing checkers on top of the Cracker Barrels, which you can play checkers at Cracker Barrel. That's something I would do with my dad. So there's all this like information that you could easily find, whether you just Google it or you find some articles. You just ask Chat GPT and they'll bring up some sources for you. It's very easy to verify what I'm saying. But some people believed that Cracker Barrel is about the crack of the slave master's whip. By the way, there are people who use whips and they didn't use them on humans, by the way. That's not the only purpose for buying whips, by the way. But um people were saying it was for the crack of the slave owner's whip, and that there's actually a whip in the logo. And there's not. It's like a floral a, cl- a uh calligraphy, but it's like a flourish, a decorative flourish. Um the K to like the R or something, and it just kind of swoops around. It's not a whip. It doesn't even make sense. People act as if Cracker Barrel was founded in like 1800s or something. The store, the restaurant was founded in like 1969. All of the store owners, childhood memories of just trying to invoke that feeling of of the old stores or whatever. It the reach that people have with it is so wonky, but most importantly, there's historical evidence to validate my claim. So I just pointed out like there's some false things that people believe. And people are like, nah, sis, that ain't it. Did Master tell you this? Are you working for them? How much you get paid for this, you Auntie Tom? And the comments like that have been I don't know, nonstop. And it's just really silly. It's really silly. So someone said in one of my update videos, I think about it, and they're like, so what? They spread propaganda about and take our stuff and spread propaganda about it all the time and don't tell us to take the high road. And I'm like, okay, I'm not motivated by racial grievances. And mind you, this conversation is on not my black tea site, or TikTok rather. It's on my author account. Cuz I'm making this content to remind people that I write historical fiction fantasy, because I did let people know like, hey, I know this stuff because I researched for my book. So people are getting all political and calling me all these names, not with the context of I voted for Donald Trump or that I'm a black Republican or any of that stuff. All they know is that I said Cracker Barrel's logo isn't about whipping slaves, and they're angry about it. And so I told her, I said, I'm not motivated by racial grievances. And I think this conversation's really getting too deep for a logo discussion, but it's not really about me taking the high road. And I said, as a Christian, I don't really think there really is a high road. It's just the path I'm supposed to walk. And when I deviate away from that path, then I've fallen out of line with God's will and what he wants for me, the call of my life, etc. To sin, it actually means literally to miss the mark. That's what it means. And so if I'm not walking the path, I need to figure out how I get the back on the path. So I said it's does it benefit me at all to lie about this issue? It would ruin my credibility. And I brought this up to because it's topical and I wanted to help sell my books, like talk about my books. Like so if I try to push a lie when there's so much information readily available in the palms of people's hands, they could say, well, she's lying or that's not true. It would blow my credibility. So there's no benefit to me lying. There's a benefit to me telling the truth. So I'm not gonna lie about something so silly just because it'll make you feel better. To wallow in your hatred of white people or what you think white people did to you. So it's amazing how much division people want to cause and how much they love it. I just want to warn you guys that I know we had this big electoral victory almost about a year ago. You know, we experienced that. We got some good things going on in America right now. I'm very glad to live here, but there's some crazy pockets in this country that are just haywire. Like Donald Trump wanting to clean up DC and Chicago and all these places, and you have Democrats who are so angry about it, so upset about it, trying to pretend like, oh, DC's not some kind of crime hellhole or something. And Trump, showed up with the National Guard. People are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how clean it is, and it does feel safe. And there's different, policemen on the streets are like, nah, this is great. And let me show you guys this clip. Before I get to the JK Rowling stuff, let me show you guys this clip from Morning Joe talking about Chicago. There was 54 people shot and 7 killed in Chicago over the weekend. Oh, wait, hold on. Before I show you guys this video, let me show you this this tweet. Because ABC's News reported on it and said 54 shot over the weekend in Chicago as governor rejects Trump's threat to send a National Guard. And so this guy, Judd, said, this is not reporting, this is propaganda. So Stephen Miller replied to that and said, stop reporting on the crime. Like, the governor is trying to stop Trump from sending the National Guard. They don't want that help. They don't want to cooperate with Trump, even if it's at the expense of people's lives. Even if it's at the expense of people's lives. So now let me show you guys that clip on Morning Joe with them talking about this. Mostly the Morning Joe here mentioning it.
Concern is you have leaders in Chicago that see this, as you say. We've been reading about this for years now, every weekend, and maybe crime has gone down. But, we had the mayor of Chicago on last week saying, oh, we don't need any more police officers. Police officers aren't the answer. No police officers. Like, I think he said no 5 times. You look what's happening this weekend. You look so, I actually think that J.B. Pritzker should do something radical. I think he should pick up the phone, call the president, and say, and I know, you don't have the constitutional authority to deploy the National Guard here and to police my. You can do that in D.C. You can't do that in Chicago. But let's partner up. These are the most dangerous parts of my state. We would love to figure out how to have a partnership that's constitutional, that respects the sort of balance of federalism between the federal government and the state government. And let's work together to save lives. Because right now, just hey, nothing to see here moving along. No problem here. Hey, Donald Trump, we don't need you. And, the mayor talking about we're going to protect people's dignity in our city. Well, protect their lives. That's protecting their dignity. It would be radical for us to figure out a way to actually do what I've been saying from the very beginning on Washington. And that is seeing politicians creating partnerships that protect their people. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Politicians actually trying to protect their people and putting politics aside to do what's necessary. I talk about the beginning of the pandemic when people were very afraid, didn't know what was going to happen. And at the beginning, people seem like they're going to put politics aside a little bit. Like, Gavin Newsom was asked by the media. The media seemed like they always wanted to be about politics. To me, that's how it came off. And I think it was an interview with Gavin and even Andrew Cuomo. And they're both like, we know you want us to say something bad, but they're actually doing a pretty good job. And Mike Pence, like, we've been on the phone with him. He's giving us what we need, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually, I don't know, someone must have, sent out a memo or something, and it's like, now we got to turn up the heat. And it just became like, now everything Trump does is trash. So it became political for sure. But at first it really should have just been about, like, what is best? How can we help save our people and protect lives, defend lives? Like, we talked last week about a police, not a police shooting, a school shooting. And everyone's like, gun control, because they really didn't want to talk about mental health. So they're talking about gun control, and it's like, okay, well, what can we do to actually protect lives? Because they have strict gun laws, they have red flag laws, but they don't want the flags that he was sending out to register there, with obviously him being mentally not all there, believing that he's a man, believing he's a woman. So that's a red flag. Sorry guys, it is. They don't want those sorts of things to count, so they didn't want to have any conversations about mental health. But what about, like, at least actually protecting these kids at school? And I know maybe people think it's too expensive, or they don't want that to be the culture of the schools where you have the guards and stuff. Um, I th- I think the shooter even wrote something like he wanted to kill Jewish kids, but uh Christian kids were like easier to kill or something. And I'm like, well, I don't know what his thinking is about how he got to that conclusion, but if I had to guess, the Jewish schools will have some security on those kids. So we got to do something with protecting the people. So Donald Trump, he at least wants to send in the National Guard when it comes to cleaning up some of this crime and working like with the police, just kind of giving them some backup, getting the bums off the street and so on. So maybe you're not just going in the subway and you get, well, I guess that's more of a New York thing, but they have trains, so Chicago, but not subways. But Chicago's pretty bad. And it sucks because I've been to Chicago plenty of times. I would go to C2E2 do Comic Con there. I'd like to go to New York Comic Con. I haven't been. I've thought about it quite often. It's too late to get their Comic Con now, but that's a you know things can get pretty dangerous in those areas. So I want to make sure that there's still cops. I don't know if there's still gonna be cops there after Mamdani takes office, but I want to make sure that it's safe wherever I go. So I love living in the United States of America. Sometimes it is not safe in certain places, not just because some psychopath might have a gun, but because people don't feel empowered. Authorities don't feel empowered to do what they need to do to keep people safe, or there's just a lack of real care for politicians that they're more, I don't know, concerned. They're more motivated to disarm the people than to protect them. That's the issue. That's a real issue. Anyway, let's get this JK Rowling thing. I don't want to leave you guys before I talking about it. So there was a director who worked on Harry Potter who was asked about some kind of cast reunion, and this is a story from, I'm reading it off of AOL, but it's from USA Today. Will a Harry Potter and Cursed Child film starring Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint ever happen? Don't hold your breath, director Chris Columbus says. Columbus, who directed the first two movies in the Harry Potter franchise, has previously expressed interest in turning the Cursed Child stage play into a film that would bring back the original cast. But in a new interview with the Sunday Times published on Saturday, August 30th, the filmmaker said this is no longer possible due to author JK Rowling's anti-trans controversy. It's never going to happen, he said. It's gotten so complicated with all the political stuff. Everyone in the cast has their own opinion, which is different from her opinion, which makes it impossible. Columbus added, I haven't spoken to Miss Rowling in a decade or so. I have no idea what's going on with her, but I keep very close contact with Daniel Radcliffe, and I just spoke to him a few days ago. I still have a great relationship with all the kids from the cast. So that's his comment. And I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. Like, it's not like she'd be on set directing them if they wanted to even do it. I doubt they all want to do that and go back to that world. That was such a huge part of their lives, but I don't know. Obviously the guy who plays Draco Malfoy, I can't think of his name off the top of my oh gosh, what's his name? But he loves Harry Potter still and being in that world, and he actually reprised his role in the stage play. And he was asked about JK Rowling, and he was just like, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and did not get into the politics. If people try to drag him there, he did not take that bait. And some people were mad because he didn't, I don't know, curse her or something, but maybe he's a normal person with normal sort of views, and JK Rowling has very normal views in all this stuff. So I want to go through this thread because she did address this director, and she I don't think she said his name, but she said, as another man who once worked with me declares himself saddened by my beliefs on gender and sex. I thought it might be useful. Tom Felton. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's Tom Felton. Thank you very much. Let me start over. As a man who once worked with me declares himself saddened by my beliefs on gender and sex, I thought it might be useful to compile a list for a handy reference. Which of the following do you imagine makes actors and directors who aren't involved with the HBO reboot of Harry Potter so miserable? Is it my belief that women and girls should have their own public changing rooms and bathroom? That one doesn't seem very controversial to me. That women should retain female only rape crisis centers. Do people have a problem with that one? That men don't belong in women's sports. That female prisoners shouldn't be incarcerated with violent men and male sex offenders. I think she's kind of cooking, y'all. That women should remain a protected class in law because they have sex specific needs and issues. That language should reflect reality rather than ideological jargon, especially in a medical context. That women shouldn't be harassed, persecuted, or fired for refusing to pretend humans can change sex. That women should not be threatened with violence and rape when they assert their rights. That freedom of speech and belief are essential to pluralistic democratic society. That troubled minors, especially those who are gay, autistic, and trauma experienced, should be given mental health support instead of irreversible surgeries and drug treatments on non-existent evidence of benefit. That gay people shouldn't be pressured to include the opposite sex in their dating pools, nor should they be smeared as genitalia fetishists when they don't. That cross-dressers, heterosexual male fetishists aren't actually oppressed, but having the time of their lives piggybacking off of gender identity ideology. That said ideology and the privileged blinkered fools pushing it because they suffer zero consequences themselves have done more damage to the political left's credibility than Trump and Farage could have achieved in a century. Let me have your thoughts. So, she's got a point, y'all. She's cooking. She's correct. She is correct. I agree with her views, the stated ones. I know she's still pretty left. So that final point of these people who have taken on the moral conscience of the left, whether they be in the UK or they be Democrats here in America, it's a thing that they talk about. It's a thing that they obsess about, that they still can't let go of. It was still on the hearts and minds of Democrats earlier last week, and then you led into the shooting of by the trans person, and then they didn't want to talk about mental health because they just know it makes them and their side look crazy. They're obsessed with it on the left, and they try to say that we're obsessed with it because it's just 1% of the population. Why less than 1%? Why are you picking on them? Why is this such a focal point for you guys? If it's such a small population, then why can't they just suck it up and deal with life? Like, oh, that sucks. That person who's really out of the ordinary can't go in the woman's bathroom. That's for the best. Sucks that they're sad though. They'll have to deal with that in therapy. But let's not disenfranchise and endanger and make all the women uncomfortable for this lone dude over here. Like, why is that such a prominent thing in your ideology? I saw a post today from someone who was doing a report on Donald Trump and how much he spent on Kamala Harris's campaign. And the ads about the trans stuff. Donald Trump wasn't even that strong on this stuff when he ran in 2015, 2016. He wasn't not strong enough. He had to because at first he's like, oh, Jenner can use my bathroom or whatever. Caitlyn Jenner can use the women's bathroom at the tower. Like he was kind of like wishy-washy on it a bit. And even like during the primary in 2024, he wasn't like where we really wanted him to be. But they saw a gold mine in how left-wing Kamala Harris was with the issue. And man, CNN reported on a survey that she did that said that she believed like the US should pay for transgender care of like illegal alien detainees. And that wasn't like a check mark thing, like if you agree or not agree. Like she had to like write that in, fill that out. It's like her or someone on her team that sent that in for the survey thing. So, or questionnaire rather. And CNN reported on that, and people really started talking about it, and people started digging up other stuff that she had said about the trans issues. And so Trump could put her on commercial saying stuff in her own words. And now people are trying to claim, this person said, one, Kamala Harris did not lose the election because of things she said. She lost because the things Donald Trump said she said. And they said in the final weeks of the election, the Trump campaign spent more than $29 million on television ads attacking Harris on transgender rights. It was by far the biggest focal point when it comes to Trump's ad spending, one of the best barometers of messaging priority there is, wrote Mark Caputo on October 24th. The campaign has spent $5 million on TV ads on the economy, making that topic the fifth most emphasized. Sir, she's literally on camera doing interviews talking about this stuff, literally filled out surveys, and then people had conversations like on the Breakfast Club about some of the reporting on it. And so then like Charlemagne ended up in the ads and stuff. So it's her words, it's things that she said. And it's funny that they want to claim that Donald Trump was just saying things that she said instead of her actual words. No, he was actually telling the truth about her, but she would constantly lie about him. She would constantly lie about him. They lied about stuff that was in Project 2025. Forget about it not being his platform. They just lied and made up stuff about what that wasn't even in there. So these people will never learn. I hope they never get back in power. I hope they're too stupid to do so. But I know sadly that isn't the case. I know sadly that isn't the case. And if they do not correct a lot of the wackadoodle people in their party, you're gonna get a Mom Donnie like person who's gonna elevate pretty far, into success, political success. Not like his politics won't actually be successful, unless he gets in office and is like, oh, I got to change some things up. There are politicians who like get into office and they're like, oh, maybe those ideas weren't that great, and I gotta be flexible. I gotta change some things here. But he doesn't really strike me as that kind of person. He might learn very quickly that a lot of the things that he promised he can't actually do. So that might be a thing. But these people who don't like the right, it's your own side that has made your own side not credible. It's your own fault. It is your own fault. It is your own fault. If there was like a real moderate sort of Democrat who ran, I guess a real kind of moderate Democrat who ran was Donald Trump. But if there was a real like moderate Democrat who ran and didn't have the baggage of Kamala Harris, so they could have probably, I don't know, maybe pulled out a win. Maybe, but she got thrashed. She got thrashed because she was just too extreme, and the crazy things that she said and the crazy positions. And someone came at me. It might have been on the Cracker Barrel video. No, I think it was. I think it was a Myers video. And they're just like, she voted for Trump, and a really easy way to explain why, and I definitely have my issues with them, is do you believe that a man can identify as a woman and then he should be able to go in women's spaces like that or compete in women's sports. Or let's say he was a sexual predator and then he's in prison and he gets to identify as a woman. Do you think he should go in women's prisons? If you can't have like clear cut sort of answers on something that is so simple, if you're confused about that or too cowardly to say what should happen in those situations, I don't want to vote for you or your side. Like, there's real problems with different politicians on the right or claiming to be on the right. You know, I could name them. I could list a lot of things that I'm not too fond of Trump, and they'll be real. Democrats will tell you things they don't like about Trump that won't even be real. I will name you real things that I don't like. I could do that. But he's not crazy. At least not like they're crazy. So yeah, I voted for him. And if it was the same matchup, I'd do it again. I would gladly do it again. But I'd be very curious to see, Daniel Radcliffe go down a checklist of, the things that JK Rowling said and just really admit, like, okay, well, do you disagree with this? Do you disagree with this? Do you disagree with this? Do you? Okay, if you don't, then I guess the trans activists won't like you either. I want them to have the courage to have to say, yes, I think that male sexual predators, if they believe that they're women, then they should go in the women's prison. I want to hear them say that. Like, the things that JK Rowling is standing up for, they're not insane. At least not in this topic. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available on the site. You guys can check out different t-shirts and so on. There is a link if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube in the description that'll take you to an Amazon page where you guys can see like a collection of my books and stuff. And this is a historical fiction fantasy book that I mentioned, The Color of God's Eyes and The Song on the Devil's Lips. And that's about a slave named Charlotte. When she was young, she realized that she was purchased by a woman named Lady Cohen because she thought she was supposed to just take care of the house and take care of master's son and all that stuff. When she gets older, she realizes that she was actually selected. So it's like the American Civil War meets X-Men, but the powers that can grant her freedom also will endanger her because there are people who believe that her kind are an abomination. So it's a really cool story. And I recommend that you guys check that out and check out other stuff that I have as well, like Super Kid and Super Kid 2 for your middle grade sort of readers. I've had kids as young as 6 pick that up and read it. That I think they'd have to be pretty impressive readers though. But usually this is kind of more like a 8 to 12 kind of range. Maybe more 8 to 10 is more like the sweet spot. But I will let you guys know when bigger is available for purchase or pre-order. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.